Black women, or excuse me, people of color targeting Latinos. What is going on out about ready to sue more and more people by yourself and get money from it? You niggas have to also let us white folks get some. To the Lawyers and Podcast Show, we'll be talking about what Edward Blum and the Judicial Watch serial litigator. Dang, I'm stuttering. Serial litigator Edward Blum, and it has just been announced that, according to CNN, museum director over a Latino-focused internship program. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining me on the Lawyer Henderson podcast show. Tonight, we basically are looking into what Edward Blum has done to basically not only get rid of affirmative action from different sources and meeting those criteria. I want to start off with this article called The Conversation. It says titled, this was published in November 30th of 2023. It says, Edward Blum's crusade against affirmative action has used the legal strategy developed by civil rights activists. People have been more associated with rolling back modern day civil rights laws than Edward Blum, a former stockbroker who has successfully challenged many affirmative action and voting rights laws. Blum has no formal legal training. He, in fact, refers to himself as an amateur litigator. Yet he was instrumental in engineering several legal cases that ultimately led to the June 29, 2023 U.S. Supreme Court's decision that banned the use of race in college admissions. Spared from the decision were U.S. military academics. In brief footnotes in a 237-page decision, Chief Justice John Roberts wrote that those institutions has potentially distinct interests from other universities, thus make them exempt from the course this academia West Point use of racial. So on September 19, 2023, skips down in the article. Remember, this is around November 2023, right? So it was also noted that until recently, Blum's legal activist his crusade began in the early 1990s when Blum lost the 1992 congressional election in Texas. Blum and others eventually sued Texas, claiming that the political district created the 1990s to increase minority votes participation were unconstitutional. The case eventually made its way to the U.S. Supreme Court. In a 1996 decision in Bush versus Vera, the court agreed with Blum and his fellow litigants. Justice held the race was dominant factor in the creation of those districts and thus violated the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause. Now, we basically have been trying to use the 14th Amendment as Black folks for years, you see. But somehow Blum was able to catch the attention of suing people by using the same amendment. It goes on to write that as a result, the court withdrew state to conduct special elections in those districts that they deemed were racially gerrymandered. After the Supreme Court opinion came down, my interest in the world of business and National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP, the very civil rights organization that used the courts to dismantle racial segregation in the seminal 1954 case Brown versus Board of Education. Okay, you see that? He is claiming that he has used the NAACP as a way to fight these cases, to reverse them, is what he's doing here. But Edward Blum is not done. He is not done. Now, we already know who all sits on the Supreme Court. So far you got old Boule Clarence Thomas up there, and you got the new chick up there, Ketanji Brown Jackson, both married to white folks. And then you got one Latino there. You got Justice Sania Sotomayor, you know. Um, got an opportunity to meet her at CNN. I went and visited one time. And then the rest of them, of course, is white folks. Okay. Now, here's the issue with what Edward Blum is doing. He is going around telling folk, suing folk that basically helps black people. He is targeting them and making sure that they don't get no funding use. And so this is something that he has always been wanting to do because of his losing the congressional seat. Because, of course, if he can get into the congressional seats in those districts, he'll be able to do more than just sue. So he decided that since nobody wanted to vote for his old wrinkled ass, then now it's time to go and be a serial litigator. And this is what certain people do here. White folks specifically does when they cannot get into certain types of congressional seats, because that's ultimately what he wants to do. In other words, he wants to die in office. So, of course, he used an Asian person to get rid of affirmative action. And I'm not going to bore you with the rest of this specific articles, but we're going to go on and talk about a little more things that Edward Blum was doing. But Edward Blum is not the only organization. It just basically been announced that Edward Blum got another associates, not connected to him, but another conservative group that is also has sued over reparations for people of Evanston, Illinois. Now, when they gave the reparations money out back in March 19th of 2021, around that time, I should say, the whole discussion was to just give it to African Americans that stayed in that district. So CNN did an article there, Nyquil Terry Ellis. I hope I said Nyquil Terry Ellis. I hope I said this person's name right. It was published June the 6th, 2024. It says that reparations have become the latest target for conservative activists. Advocates say they are prepared to fight back. Okay? Now, trust me, everybody who basically went up against Blum has somehow lost in either the circuit courts or the Supreme Court. Okay? Ironically. Okay? Let me say that again. Everybody so far that Edward Blum had up against, or even other conservative group like the Judicial Watch, who's now suing for these people here, that we circuit issue about white supremacy. Okay, we all know that we have puppets sitting on the Supreme Court, specifically the two blacks, well, who so-called black ones, who are married to white people. The title goes on to say that reparations have become the latest target for conservative activists. Advocates say they are prepared to fight back. But just letting these advocates know, okay, that this judicial watchdog is basically another organization just like Edward Blum. Okay? Just letting you know that. All right? So the Judicial Watch is another conservative organization, and they're going to target um, some people, these black people who receive $25,000 in reparations. That Evanston was one of the first ones to hand out actual real payments. The article from CNN goes on to write that a conservative group lawsuit against a rep program in Evanston, Illinois, that provides some black residents. This could be the first of many attacks on the efforts to redress the harms of slavery, segregation, and systematic racism in the United States. City use race as an eligibility requirement for participating in the program to be is unconstitutional. Now, this is what these people are out here saying. The argument followed a legal strategy frequently employed by conservative activists to attempt to undercut the program dedicated to address racial disparities in the wake of the Supreme Court decision to overturn affirmative action in college admissions. This is the reason why we already know that the white conservative is no different than a white liberal. This is what Malcolm taught us. They are just as against black people from having money and wealth, just like the white liberal is. Okay, I did speak a little bit different about the white folks back in the 1800s during Reconstruction, when you did have some white conservative that was willing to give money to black people, even though they was racist as hell. But this group of white conservatives today, they believe in the liberal concept as well, too. Okay? It goes on to say here that as the nation prepares to observe Juneteenth, the federally holiday on June 19th that commemorates the end of slavery in the U.S., reparations advocates tell CNN that they are bracing for potentially more lawsuits against their programs, but stand firm in their commitment to finding ways to rectify the centuries of racism Black Americans and their families have endured. Under the Evanston reparations program, Black residents who lived in the city between 1919 and 1969, as well as direct descendants, can apply for up to $25,000 in housing assistance, CNN previously reported. The program was established in 2019 and amended last year to provide the options of direct cash payments. Ruth Simmons, chairman of the Evanston Reparations Committee, said that the lawsuit comes as no surprise and that Evanston is prepared to defend the case. Now, here's the thing about these organizations. They basically know that by advertising this throughout the country, that these people are going to react. Because, like I said earlier, white people don't like when black people have to get anything. They want us to be destitute. They don't want us to have no money. Okay? This is so it goes on to say here, Robin Ruth Simmons, the chairman of the Evanston Reparations Committee, said that the lawsuit comes as no surprise, and Evanston is prepared to defend the case. This is not just an attack on Evanston, Ruth said in a statement to CNN. This is an attack on the movement for reparations. This is an attack on the overall movement for the advancement of repatrial justice, racial equity, and civil rights. Okay? So we know that these white folks do not want us to have money. They said this long time ago, specifically the Democrats, who stated that if black people ever have financial freedom, that they will not be able to control black folks because they will be able to do what? Their own thing. That's the reason why black people who, of course, have a legitimate argument, These white folks do not want us to have money because we really wouldn't need them if we had opportunity. The article from CNN goes on to write and say here that Judicial Watch lawsuit was filed on behalf of 6 people whose parents or grandparents lived in Evanston during 50-year period the program covers, but do not identify as Black or African American. See, there you go. There you go. Let's see, every time that Black people get something, here come everybody else out of the woodwork. We deserve some reparations too. We stayed here back in those days. You see, and this is the reason why the reparations situation, had these white folks gave us our reparations after the alleged so-called end of slavery in 1619, it wouldn't have happened. I mean, we wouldn't be basically Civil War, 1865 or whatever. We wouldn't have to go through all of this stuff. Let's see. I think slavery began in 1619 and ended in 1865 or somewhere around there. So we basically been the only race that has not been able to get our reparations from these white folks. And these white folks don't want us to have no money. That's the reason why it's foolish to continue to think that their system is going to do something for you. They're not. Now, what it says here, as Screw 2 keep on messing with my live, it says here, at no point in the application process are persons from the first and the second group required to present evidence that they are their ancestor experienced housing discrimination or otherwise suffered harm because of unlawful Evanston ordinance, policy, or procedure, or some other unlawful act or series of act by Evanston between 1919 and 1969. The lawsuit states, and in effect, Evanston is using race as a proxy for having experienced discrimination during this time period, end quote. Judicial President Tom Fitton told CNN. Now, Tom Fitton is another Edward Blum. Okay. Tom Fitton and Edward Blum are partners when it comes to serial litigation. Just want you to understand that. And we're going to talk later how they not only attacked the Fearless Fund, these Black women, but they have also attacking Hispanics. Okay. Now, bear with me here because this Judicial Watch Group President Tom Fitton is also out of line. The CNN article goes on to write that the Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton told CNN in an interview that he believes Evanston's reparations program is a brazen violation of the Constitution and federal law. And see, this is how these white conservative, this is why we don't agree with the white conservative either. Because the white conservative, by going around saying, well, we should vote Republican and stuff like that, they don't believe that the Black man should have money either. In fact, as Black people, I think it's time for us to start creating our own currency anyway and leave these white folks' money system alone. Okay. But it goes on to write, though, that Judicial Watchdog President Tom Fitton told CNN in an interview that he believes Evanston reparations program is a brazen violation of the Constitution and federal law. Generally speaking, you can't treat people based upon race and provide benefits to some and not others based on generalized complaints of historic racism, Fitton said. The courts frowned up on it. Now, we have a racist Supreme Court and we have racist inferior courts. Your 11th circuits, your federal courts, your lower courts, all of these courts in the United States are racist towards Black people. And so when you have these courts basically telling a group of people that they should not get reparations, That's a system, as we've been telling you throughout the Black grassroots and Black media, that is illegitimate. White people believe that no Black people should have any money. That's the basis of white supremacy. Okay? And a lot of Black people are out here talking about, what you mean white supremacy? What you talking about? Ain't no white supremacy out here. What y'all Black folks getting on my nerve talking about these white supremacy? Not go on. You understand? A spokesperson for the city of Evanston previously told CNN officials will not comment on pending litigation, but will vehemently defend its reparations program. Justice Hansford, a commissioner for the National African Americans Reparations Commission, reject judicial watchdog's interpretation of the legality of reparations program. And quote, he said that Jim Crow was based upon race. Redlining was based upon race. Housing segregation was based upon race, end quote. Hansford said, in all of those situations, you had a community that was harmed based upon race. So now when you're trying to give the community justice, you're going to naturally give what? You're going to give them repair. So what they're saying to you is that, yes, we discriminated against you niggers back in the day, but you can't turn around and give them loans or business grants or money or cash direct payments for being discriminated against. But you can give it to Jews. You can give it to the LGBT community. You can give it to the Japanese. You can give it to everybody else. But you can't give it to Black folks. And that's what these white folks are here saying. Okay? It goes on to say that Fitton said it's possible he may file lawsuits against other reparations programs. The Evanston lawsuit comes as the state and the city across the country have formed commissions to explore how reparations can be distributed and should receive them. The push for reparations in the making of Juneteenth federal holiday gained momentum following the racial reckoning and aftermath of the George Floyd murder in 2020. But for years later, reparations in other race-based programs such as internships and scholarships across the country are continuing to face roadblocks following the gutting of affirmative action. On Wednesday, the Oklahoma Supreme Court dismissed the lawsuit that argues that the remaining survivors of the 1921 Tulsa race massacre should be compensated by the city for damages, dealing with the blow that their ongoing fights for reparations. And so that's what white people tell you. They would sit there and ignore Black people who were alive at the time and not give them anything, and then wait till everybody all dead and say, see, all these people is dead. We can't just dig them up and give them money. But you got now three survivors of the Tulsa race riot that you don't have to dig up right now and give them their just due compensation for what happened to them in 1921. You're dealing with diabolical white supremacists in the system. These white folks know that this is the only way to keep you down. But Black people have not understood, just like Latinos have not understood, is that you don't have to follow a system that is illegitimate. It's illegitimate. The article goes on to write in another paragraph, in early this month, a federal appeals court blocked the Black-owned venture capitalist firm Fearless Fund, which is we're going to talk about here in a minute, from awarding grants exclusively for Black women entrepreneurs. Some reparations leaders say they haven't taken more racial neutral approaches to their programs with the hopes of avoiding legal battles. Camilla Moore, chair of the California Reparations Task Force, said her commission recommended that the state program be lenient based, meaning residents who apply for it would have to provide proof that their ancestors was enslaved or free African Americans who lived in the U.S. prior to the 1900s. Moore said that the commission believed their lineage-based approach is constitutional. That's not to say there may not still be a challenge to lineage-based programs by these same groups, Moore said. But the lineage-based reparation advocates, we are confident in our position from a moral and ethical and legal perspective, she added. The task force have also recommended upon harm suffer from inequalities such as housing segregation, mass incarceration, over-policing, devaluation of Black businesses, and health disparities. The recommendations have been packaged in bills that are waiting for approval from the California state legislature, she said. In New York, Governor Kathy Hochul, however you say this woman's name, signed legislation in December to establish a reparations commission that would study the lingering effects of slavery in New York. Residents make recommendations for how the state could address that long-standing inequalities. Jennifer Joan Austin, a member of the New York Commission and CEO of the Federation of Protestant Welfare Agencies, said that they are looking to take more holistic approach to reparations that may include individual payments, investment in Black communities, and redressing laws to advance equity and equality and equal opportunity for Black people. Jones Austin said she expected there would be a legal challenge to reparations efforts, given all the recent attack on policies and programs created to repair the harm Black Americans have suffered. But see, you wouldn't have to do this if you tell these white folks, listen, we're going to basically start our own and do our own stuff. What can they do with 47 million Black people in the United States, man? You understand? You can get reparations tomorrow if you tell them that you're not participating in the system no more. Okay? You have to make sure you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's in any work you do that is controversial, especially when it comes to money, Jones Austin said. It doesn't make the work more challenging. A civil rights lawyer. See, this is the problem with us. We keep on allowing white people in these media outlets to call us civil rights. Every time that you call yourself a civil rights leader, you are basically only stuck to the white man's system, his judicial system. Reva Martin, a civil rights lawyer and reparations advocate, said she was not surprised by the lawsuit against Evanston. Martin says she believes conservatives have been emboldened by the gutting of affirmative action and are using the decision to sue other race-based initiatives. Anybody who would be naive to be aware of these very calculated and very orchestrated and planned attacks, Martin said. But what I want people to know and what my message is to be is that we are not going away. We are not going to shrink. We are not going to coward. We are not going to be intimidated, she writes. Hansford said he hopes the lawsuit against Evanston motivates supporters to rally around reparations programs. It's called arms, Hansford said. We know that this is just the opening salvo in a long-running struggle. People around the country should realize how real the reparations movement has become. All right, you see how these white folks are? They're not going to give you money. They already told you that they basically benefit from Black people being poor. They benefited from Black people having no money. They benefit from Black people going without having no economic system. That's how these white folks are. And they basically would try to be naive and talk about, well, what you niggas want. Basically, we've given you jobs. Ignorant. The hell with your jobs, you know? You don't want to work for y'all no more, okay? In fact, that was not even the aspiration for the Black youth. The aspiration from us is to basically work for ourselves. That was the advocates. That was the aspirations of the whole civil rights generation. Now, speaking of fearless fun, let me tell you why we're never going to get nowhere. Because Black women think that they are basically a group by themselves. They don't. They're not a part of the Black man. And this is the reason why they keep falling into these situations. But when we come back from our music break, we're going to talk more. We're going to talk about the fearless fun. We're going to also talk about Edward Blum. He's back and he's doing it again. He is now targeting the Latino communities in an internship program situation. Stay with us. You're listening to the Lawyer Henderson podcast show. We'll be right back from the music break. We're back on the Lawyer Henson podcast show. Like, share, and subscribe. You've been listening to the Lawyer Henson podcast show. We're talking about serial litigator Edward Blum and other organizations, conservative organizations, who have been suing and targeting Black people and for getting money, and also have been using the court system to strike down not only affirmative action, but to strike down other programs that is to help Black folks. And this is how white folks do it. They want to keep Black people away from money. They want us to stay away from economics. They want us to only have jobs, and that's it. And this is the reason why the United States is becoming economically bankrupt, because the people who are running this country are not only in relationship with Zionist Jews, they have Zionist Jews running the system of this country, and there's only a few families who's telling 300 and something million people what to do. And this is becoming a huge problem. This is the reason why the United States is becoming a poor country by the moment. And we're going to be talking about the war that Ukraine is facing, and how the United States is trying to get themselves involved in this conflict and trying to send your children. They have just brought back the draft, and they're bringing back the draft. And we are in dangerous time, because now they are not only bringing back the draft, but they said that they're automatically signing up people, young teenagers and adolescents, teenagers, I should say, or young adults that is 18 through 26. So your kids will be automatically drafted. And the House had just passed a similar bill as far as the selective service program, that when you basically wanted to sign up to get federal programs, remember you had to sign up for the selective service in order to get grants to student loan. A lot of Gen Z said, well, we're not going for that. Basically, we don't even want to go to college anymore. So they did it differently. This time, they basically rewrote the bill to say, well, hell, fuck it. You all are just going to go ahead and we're going to put you down automatically anyway, even if you don't go to college. Okay. So that's how they've been doing it. Today, we've been talking about the serial litigator. What CNN had called him is a legal strategist, and that's not what he is. Edward Blum is the white supremacist, suspected white supremacist, who've only been targeting Black people, but he is not done. He is also targeting Latinos. But before we get to how he's been targeting Latinos, we're going to be talking about the Fearless Fund. On June 3rd, 2024, CNN writes by Nicole Terry Ellis, who wrote the other previous articles. He said here in the article, it says, Federal Appeals Court blocks Fearless Fund from issuing grants to only Black women. Okay. Fearless Fund co-founder is Adrienne Simone and Ayanna Parsons. Now, I already knew that this Parsons woman was a lesbian. Okay. I'm just going to say right there, I knew that she was a lesbian. I don't think that she's married to a Black man or any man for that reason. But this is a beginning of a gender war that Fearless Fund actually got itself into. Okay. But at any rate, we'll go ahead and read the article. Then we'll basically come back and talk about it a little bit here. Okay. Keep in mind, you got me for an hour and 30 minutes or 40 minutes here. Hour and 30 minutes. The U.S. Supreme Court, the U.S. Appeals Court for the 11th Circuit. Now, I wrote a book on the 11th Circuit. I told y'all. Okay. I wrote a book on the U.S. Supreme Court. It's called How My Pro Se Plaintiff Case Got Destroyed by Federal Road Judges. If you go get that ebook, you're going to know about the 11th Circuit Courts of Appeals. You're just going to know about them. You're going to also know about federal judges in general. Okay. And not surprisingly, you're going to also find out that there's a total of 137 federal judges in the United States that should have already been fired for breaking federal law. But yet they're still presiding over cases into which they have a conflict of interest. But now the 11th Circuit Courts of Appeals has blocked a Black-owned venture capitalist firm from awarding grants exclusively to Black women entrepreneurs. In an opinion released Monday, the judges ruled that the Fearless Fund Fearless Strivers Grant contest is substantially likely to violate the provisions of Title 42 of the U.S. Code, which in the ruling, the appellate court ordered a federal court to enter a preliminary injunction blocking the fund from closing its grant applications process while the case continued to be litigated. It also states that the fund program is unlikely to be protected by the First Amendment. The court's decision marks a victory for anti-affirmative action legal strategist Edward Blum, who filed the lawsuit last August against the fund on behalf of his group, America Alliance for Equal Rights. Okay? It is very interesting that these white folks talk about equal rights after not giving us our reparations. AAER attorneys have argued that their members who were unnamed in the lawsuit were excluded from the grant program because they weren't Black and they would face additional harm from the illegal act of racial discrimination. Now, here's the issue with filing that lawsuit from the 11th Circuit Court. Now, I told you that the 11th, if you read my book, I just mentioned how one of my pro se plaintiffs' cases got destroyed by federal road judges. I would tell you, by going up to the federal court myself, I would tell you that the 11th Circuit Court is ran by a group of judges, mostly from the Federalist Society. Okay, just by having people who are unnamed in the lawsuit itself should have been thrown out, because by law, there has to be a plaintiff, or it has to be a group of plaintiffs. It just can't be an organization who says, well, we're going to sue you based upon this program. They have to have people come to them and say, listen, these folks are discriminating against us. But what did this article say? It says who were unnamed in the lawsuit. That's how the 11th Circuit Court does things. The 11th Circuit Court, which basically I think there's like 7 or 9. I think there's 12 sister courts. I believe 11 or 12. But what they have done here is whoever was the attorney for Fearless Fund did not basically ask to dismiss the case based upon the fact of not naming the people who were supposed to be the 6 members or whoever that they basically applied and did not get the money. So what the 11th Circuit Court judges did was said, oh, okay, well, even though they're not unnamed, it still violates the protection. So what they were supposed to have done was grant in part and basically grant what is called in part. Now, what that means is that they were supposed to basically continue the lawsuit, and then at the end of the federal court situation, I think they did that in federal court, did it in part. And what they did in part was should have reversed it back to the federal courts to let a jury decide. So the 11th Circuit has done this a lot, but not the 11th Circuit, I'm sorry. The federal courts have done this a lot in Georgia, where they would end the lawsuit on specifically on summary judgment, for instance. And they would basically, the federal judge will then allow it to go to the 11th Circuit. And this is the same thing that they did in one of my cases, what I talked there to you about. The federal courts basically is saying you're not entitled to a jury trial. Now, I don't know if Fearless Fund had a jury trial in federal court, because typically the federal judges try to get away from giving you a jury trial and try to and basically in hopes of defeating you with summary judgment. Okay, so I don't really know what the court case is, but most likely I don't think that the U.S. Supreme Court would take this case, because here's the problem. If they do, they most likely will strike it down as, like they did in the U.S. Superior Court. The U.S. Supreme Court, and when Edward Blum took the affirmative action situation, they basically upheld it. They basically got rid of affirmative action. So by the same litigator taking a different case to the U.S. Supreme Court, and then most likely having it to go to the U.S. Supreme Court and having it struck down, I don't think basically the U.S. Supreme Court would side with Fearless Fund on that level. I think they most likely will go with Edward Blum since he was victorious in affirmative action, right? Because in the Fearless Fund lawsuit, when they lost against the 11th Circuit, they should have basically had told the court, I don't know if they did, that Fearless Fund must reveal in open court or in their lawsuit who were the people who have filed these lawsuits. Their names have to be present. And so I got to go and see the lawsuit. I have not seen it yet. But if their names is not present, it should have not been granted. It should have been granted in part and then remanded back to federal court. But anyhow, this is white supremacy, so let's continue. It goes on to write in this article that Blum, the legal strategist behind the Supreme Court case that dismantled affirmative action in college admissions last year, said in a statement Monday that he was grateful to the court's ruling. Our nation's civil rights laws do not permit racial distinctions because some groups are overrepresented in various endeavors, while others are underrepresented, Blum said. Programs that exclude certain individuals because their race, such as the ones that the Fearless Fund has designed and implemented, are unjust and pluralizing. Significant majorities of Americans believe that an individual's race should not be a factor in our nation's public policy. That's interesting, Mr. Blum, because it was in 1865. You had a public policy that discriminated against black folks. But now the rules change because what? White people say the rules change, okay? Aaron Simone, CEO and founder partner of Fearless Fund and founder of the Fearless Foundation, said in a statement to CNN Monday that the court's ruling was devastating. I am shattered for every girl of color who has dreamed but will grow up in a nation determined not to give her a shot to live it, Simone said. On their behalf, we will turn the pain into the purpose and fight with our might. Okay? She basically don't understand. Like most black women who engage in gender war, that when you basically are working specifically against your men, you're not going to necessarily get the back of every black person. Because number one, the men are going to say, wait a minute, why is this Fearless Fund only giving grants to black women? Then she changed it to people of color, right? Oh, women of color. Women of color should be, and then next thing you know, you got Latinos and other people coming in getting the grants. See, when these black women do this and engage in gender war, and then they want to come back to the black community and say, well, see, we've been racist and such. No. That's not how it works. We're trying to tell them that's not how it works. And Fearless Fund was working with J.P. Morgan. They were working, oh man. Speaking of J.P. Morgan, I know it might embarrass you. I mean, not embarrass you, but basically, bore you. But I'm gonna do a podcast on of J.P. Morgan. I gotta do a podcast on J.P. Morgan. That was one ornery racist son of a bitch you would ever met if you was alive back in the days that he was alive. That son of a gun there, boy. Oh my God. J.P. Morgan, where we put our money in now, was one of the most racist son of a bitches you would ever met. If you would know the story and the history behind J.P. Morgan and how he became to be in the American society in the banking industry. But we'll do a podcast on it. We don't have time today. We'll do a podcast on it. Okay. The article goes on to write, America is supposed to be a nation where one has the freedom to achieve, the freedom to earn, the freedom to prosper, she said. Yet, when we attempt to level the playing field for unrepresented groups, our freedom were stifled. Okay, now this is what this Adrian Simone is saying. Okay. The 11th Circuit Judge Robin Rosenbaum issued a dissenting opinion in the case. Dissenting means that that the judge disagreed with the majority of the opinion. So, in her dissenting opinion in the case, she argues that Blum's lawsuit is a equivalent of an athlete flopping on the field to draw a foul. As American Alliance had portrayed its members' alleged injuries, it has shown nothing more than flopping on the field, Rosenbaum wrote in the opinion. Although 3 American Alliance members paid lip service to the idea that they are ready to able to participate in fearless contests, their declarations show in context that none has been a genuine interest in actually entering the contest, you see, end quote. And see that's what it was about. The Fearless Fund contestants did not even want to enter. They basically did not even show interest in the contest that the Fearless Fund is supposed to basically be about. So it wasn't like that it's an organization that was giving away money, so to speak. It was that if you entered into this contest that they were basically doing, then you can get the money in a sense, even though the Fearless Fund has its own direct, $25,000 or whatever the amount the money is. But these specific people that was supposedly have been in the case did not want to enter the contest in order to compete. They just want the money. Hey, no, we're not entering no goddamn contest. Give us 25,000 grants, just like you're doing the other people of women of color. Okay. So most likely these were some women who were white females. Okay. If they wasn't white females, they were probably Asian. Most likely the contestants were white or Asians. See, white people don't believe that they have to compete in anything. That's the reason why they need a system. They can't compete. I told you the difference in other arenas against the difference. I tell you all the time the difference between a white man and a black man competing. Okay? When it comes to a storm, the black man is heavily having to walk into the storm, tornadoes and on, in order to compete in society. Whereas the system gives the white man a truck to drive through. Only the difference there. Okay? Only the difference. These people can't compete. That's why when they basically, after supposedly removing us from slavery, that's why they again started to make laws after the country was built, so that they can have a system that they can compete from. And then, as you know, black people started advancing with our own system because they segregated us. And then after you've seen all of the businesses that we set up during Reconstruction in the 1870s, white people in the government got mad and said, you niggas can't be up there starting your own business and creating your own economic wealth. And then they knock it down and say, well, you niggas need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You see how they do it. But we would love to take the Fearless Fund, these black women's side here. But as I told you about Ayanna Parson, she is a feminist. She's a black lesbian who hates black men. Okay? She believes in gender warring. Okay? Now, I don't know about her co-founder, Adrian, the one who spoke at the 11th Circuit, but I'm familiar with Ayanna Parsons. And I told you here that when black women start to engage in this gender war, you really don't have no protection there. Okay? Edward Blum, I mean, you're talking there about women of color, which then means that if you're giving grants to black women, of course, okay, fine. Now you're saying, well, it's women of color that you're giving grants to. So, in other words, now before you know it, you're bringing in Hispanics, Latinos, you got Asian women there's there. And like I said, it's Asian women or white women who most likely, if there is named people in a lawsuit, they're the one who didn't want to compete with the Fearless Fund in the grants that was issued to these women. They don't want to compete. They want you to just give them something. And then they'll get upset with black folks. You black folks just want handouts. Okay? You white folks want handouts too. You know, y'all go and lobby every day at the Capitol to try to get what they call earmarks. You know, those are government handouts. You know, they lobby all the time at the Capitol trying to get money. And then they're going to try to tell you, oh, you shouldn't get no money. You see how these white folks are? They do not want you to compete at all. You see? But I have to say, Fearless Fund has dug their own grave here. Okay? And I'll tell you after what I mean when I basically finish reading the article. In September of 2023, the 11th Circuit Courts of Appeals in Atlanta granted the AAER's motion for injunction, which halted the program for the duration of the AAER lawsuit. The Fearless Fund, later challenging the ruling, and its attorneys presented oral arguments to the appeals court in January. The legal battle over the venture capitalist firm grant programs comes amid of a string of attacks against diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, programs in corporate America, schools, and higher education in recent months. Blum and other conservative strategists have filed lawsuits against organizations challenging their race-based programs. In March, the Smithsonian National Museum of American Latinos settled a lawsuit with the AAER that requires the museum to open its Latino-focused interns program to students of all races and ethnicities. Black business leaders say they fear that these efforts to dismantle DEI programs stand to undo decades of progress towards leveling the playing field for Black and brown people. Now, that's the issue there. That's the issue. The issue is that first you came out as Black women and you stated that this was for Black women to these white folks. Okay? You promoted the program. You're going to work with white corporations to get money for Black women. That's what the program stated. Now you had to change it up to women of color. And then when you got the white girl and the Asian girl who said, well, we're not going to compete in your contest, we're just going to sue. Because they know that when you put your backers on the website, they now got evidence that you have been funded by American corporations. And this is the foolishness that we try to get Black women to understand when they engage in this gender war. You can't go out telling these white folks everything. You understand? Okay? Edward Blum did not sue you as Fearless Fund because you are women of color. He sued you because you're Black. He didn't sue you because you're female. He sued you because you're Black. You understand? That's the reason why his lawsuit was able to prevail at the 11th Circuit Court. Okay? The same 11th Circuit Court, when you are discriminated on these jobs, that does nothing for you. In fact, I told you in my book how my case got destroyed by federal road judges, the title there, that the 11th Circuit Courts of Appeals and most of its judges is a part of the conservative group, the Federalist Society. So what the first thing that they're going to do is white people, this is what they learn in college, these Federalist Society members. They say, well, we're going to try to go into the 11th Circuit Court and we're going to ignore the law. even though they're putting their hands on a Bible and they're saying to the chief judge that they will interpret the law as fair as possible and impartiality, what they have done was taken the law and change it. And they are able to use old case law and outdated case law to justify certain things that still don't make sense. Bottom line, if I can borrow a word from Tariq Nasheed, or a phrase rather, it is I'm white and I say so. You understand? These white people basically is going to tell you that black people, you are not going to get money from us, and you're not also going to be able to use money to give to other black people. The Fearless Fund, however, did some stupid things, though, as I just said and mentioned. Never ever tell these white folks who your money donors are unless you are unless you're running for politics. Okay, if you're an organization, you know that you're going to get targeted just like a business, because these white folks is going to follow the money. They're not like black people who come up there and tell black folks. You tell black folks, hey, listen, we're going to go and we're going to start this. We're going to put in a lot of money and stuff like that. Oh, yeah, shit, I'll show up. I'll perform at the event. Sure, I'll bring this and I'll bring that. You see what I'm saying? But what is the white folks asking? What is the Chinese man asking? What is the Asians asking? What is the Arab doing? They're looking at the business aspect of it. They're trying to figure out how they're going to make money. And if they can't make money off of the situation or the business concept, they don't want to be a part of it. That's how white people and other races are. They always want to follow where the money is. And then, since they don't want to compete, what they'll do is use the white court system as a way to get their way. And this is the reason why we talk there about white privilege. Go there and listen to my video and article on white privilege. But not only do you do that, you go and look at certain types of federal judges that were placed in the 11th Circuit and other sister courts that had basically are having all of these white judges. And now what is happening is that these politicians and these judges, they now want to maintain their white privilege so badly that they basically have a commitment as white supremacists to what? Die in office. You understand? That's a barbaric system if it's not one. We're not going to resign. I don't give a damn if I'm 99 years old. I'm going to die in office. You understand? You got old judges who are still walking around at 96 years old in certain courts that wants to die in office. They don't want to retire. I'm going to die in office, and I'm going to make sure that white supremacy is maintained. Why? Because the future of America depends on it. You listen to these people like Ben Shapiro and all these other white folks, Jared Taylor and all these people. These folks know that because there's white people that is willing to die in office and to sit on the courts, to sit in the seats of the House of Representatives, the Congress, the Senate, they made it a plan not only to be career politicians, but to die in office. That's their goal, because they have to maintain and extend white supremacy. And even though that white folks will be a minority in this nation by 2045, they are now recruiting Latinos and Hispanics and Asians to help to continue their white supremacist strategy. That's the problem that the Hispanics and Latinos have now. But if they were smart, they will look at what black people are doing, and that is to what? Fight white supremacy. But when you have gender wars, like these black women have here, the Fearless Fund co-founders Adrian Simone and Ayanna Parsons, that you're going to go out there and advertise that you're going to only have grants for black women. You begin the gender war, and then you want black people's help when these white folks come for you. In fact, these white men think that you black women do such a good job in running their business, they don't even believe that you should have a life. Your only life should be 40 hours working for them. which is probably why you don't have husbands, by the way. Because if I'm basically God, let's look at why the black man is upset with black women right now. You're working for another man and then come home and treat your black husbands like shit. Here's the problem with that. You're going to engage in gender warring and then work for another man. And he's going to come after you. Not because you're a woman. Like I said earlier, he's coming after you because you're black. Okay? Of course, black women have been working for white people, and we all work for white people. Don't get me wrong. But they basically know that black women are good in running the white man's business more. As Kevin Samuels taught us, what Kevin say? Use the black woman to weaponize our businesses. And now you have black women say, well, we want to start our own business. No. You nigger bitches can't do that. You're supposed to be working for us just like you was in a house during slavery. We would not allow you to create some fearless fund where you're going to go out there and talk about giving yourself some grants. You're supposed to be working for us, black women. You're supposed to be working 40 hours a day, working for us, you see? And they have been basically doing a good job in keeping black women from not having husbands. Okay? Every time that black women go into these corporate jobs, the first thing that their employers tell them, in so many ways indirectly, is that I'm going to promote you. Why? Because you are a good customer service manager. Okay? Now, while he's home with that white woman, the black woman is then taking care of his office, managing his office, which is why, in the first place, she doesn't have a husband. Okay? She's became a working zombie now. Okay? And then wonder why she can't find a husband. Talking about that she basically wanted to find a man at 40 years old. It's too late now. Because now you're out of your prime, and black men are not going to marry no woman who is in their 40s and 50s. So then you have some of these women who say, "Oh, I know. Let's go out and start a grant program. We can negotiate with these white folks that run businesses like Walmart and J.P. Morgan and Chase, and we can go out and start our own grant programs." And the same white people who wanted you on working for them is saying, no, you nigger bitches are supposed to be on jobs. How dare you go out there and get yourself some grants, okay, and start grant programs, you see. And now you say, well, there's no protection against black women when you basically came in and engaging in gender war. So what is the black man to do? Okay, and now you want him to run to your rescue. So they basically had gotten Ben Crump to come and help out. And you already know, like I told you, the 11th Circuit, they don't follow the rules, just like a lot of judges don't. The 11th Circuit is going to ignore the law. Okay, and what this Judge Robin Rosenbaum, her opinion was correct. Okay, her opinion was not wrong at all, but she was in the minority as far as issuing a dissenting, okay, opinion. But her opinion should have been the majority in this case, because we have seen a lot of programs for Asians. We definitely seen a lot of programs, specifically grants and money for white folks. Okay, there's thousands of grants for white people out here. I can name right off the bat, and it doesn't. And basically, we should be as Black people suing all of these white folks for those grant programs that is specifically designed for Asians, designed for Hispanics, designed for white people, designed for LGBT. Those are groups that are getting money specifically as race. But Edward Blum goes out and he wants to do what? He wants to target Black people. But what the Fearless Fund has done is that they have messed up, haven't they? They decided that they are going to not only give only money to Black women, they decide that they're going to engage in a gender war against their own men. And this is the reason why they don't have the support now. We told you that when you engage in gender war like like this, it's going to, if it backfire, you're on your own. And if it is so surprising that a lot of Black people don't come out and help these women, you know the answer. Okay? I tried to tell you that if a Black man had it, because there's no grants for Black men at all. The Small Business Administration, they don't have no grants for Black men. They have grants for women. They have grants for Hispanics, but they don't have no grants for Black men or women. They have to say minorities. And anybody like Dr. Claude Anderson taught us can be a damn minority. You see? What is a minority? White folks are becoming a minority in this country in 25 years. What are you talking about minority? You understand? When we come back on our music break, again, we'll wrap it up, but look at what's going on now. Edward Blum is not done. He now decides that he's going to target Latinos. Stay with us. You're in the Lawyers and Podcast Show. Our music break. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Lawyers and Podcast Show. We're getting ready for World War III. Putin had just announced that he is sending missiles, like nuclear missiles and all that stuff, to Cuba. So America basically, when you put nuclear weapons and all those weapons towards Cuba, that means that basically you can hit the American West Coast or even parts of the United States or whatever. So Putin has already said that, NATO and America, y'all are in our background. I mean, close to us. Now y'all finna start some stuff. So what he's decided to do, President Putin of Russia, he has met with North Korea. He's already met with China, and this is why, as I said earlier, why the draft is going on. We'll be talking about World War III as we prepare to go to war with Russia. We'll be talking about that this week on the Lawyers and Podcast show. We also going to be talking about Paramount Pictures, how its owner Sherry Redstone basically had walked away from the Skydance deal, and how Paramount became struggling to find investors, and even how it went down. How did the movie studio collapse? We also going to be talking about that Hollywood has to leave Los Angeles because of high cost of not only living, but there's a limitation of people going back to work. And so we're going to be talking about all of that on the Lawyer Henderson show, specifically because under the Biden administration, so many things are just screwed up. It is crazy out here. But today, let's stick with the topic. We've been talking about legal strategist Edward Blum, who had already sued and won against two people. He had sued not only for the affirmative action struck down that he did back in 2022 when that happened. Edward Blum also sued Fearless Fund. This is a group of black women, two black women who, Adrienne Simone and Ayanna Parson, back in 2023, they basically, not in 2023, but they recently had a situation where they did a contest, and there was allegedly 6 women of color, which was Asian and I think a white woman, who sued them. Did not really want to enter their contest to get the $25,000 grant. So now they had sued Fearless Fund because what it was about is that trying to get them into pretending like that they were going to enter the business contest so there can be a winner. These white and Asian women or Latino, whoever they were, they went in and told these black women that they were going to enter their contest to get the $25,000 grant, and then later went in and got with Edward Blum and sued Fearless Fund and their co-founder Adrienne Simone and Ayanna Parson. Basically tried to get Ben Crump to come and try to get a reversal, but that didn't work. They basically tried to do this gender war that, we'll just let, women of color come in, especially it was first for black women. Then they start saying it was women of color, and now they need the black community help. But that's what lesbians and feminist women do. They hate men, and specifically they hate black men, but then you want to come in and want the black community and the black man's help. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. That Fearless Fund grant should also be for black men as well, because black men don't have no grants that they can start businesses as well. Now, I would have dared Edward Blum, if I set up a damn grant, I would have dared that fucking son of a bitch come and sue me, because I would have countersued him for $40 billion, for the simple fact that there's a lot of things that Edward Blum is doing that he can be sued for right now. I'll give you an example. It was alleged that Edward Blum, of course, is using those donations to invest in companies. Okay, so a nonprofit who is supposed to be depending on if he set up a for-profit, I don't know. He might have, most likely he did. But in any event, he's using this money to invest in businesses so he can get money in stocks as he starts to sue more people. That's how he's living and getting this money. And that's why he's suing people, because he can turn around and put it into stocks, and he'll have money where he can pay people based upon suing. So it's not about basically for him just going after people for civil rights violation. It's just he's trying to get him and other conservative white people rich. And that's a lawsuit within itself, because he's using the IRS codes. But because Fearless Fund, these black women decided that they're going to engage in a gender war, against their own men with this Ayanna Parsons. They basically did it wrong. They just did it wrong. And nobody is coming to their aid because they basically did it wrong. You don't advertise that you're going to have a grant set up for only Black women, and then on your website, you show the white corporations that is giving you the money. That's stupid. Okay, it's just like changing a tire. What did that Black female say online on YouTube? She said that if I had a man to tell me that I can plug my tire instead of going and buying a brand new one, I would have saved a lot of money because I only thought a nail was in there. And which she's right, a nail was in the tire. So she could have got it plugged and went on by her business. But she was foolish to let a white man talk her into buying a brand new tire for $100. And this is how stupid our women are. They're silly they're acting. You can't engage in gender war under the system of white supremacy. It's not going to work for you. It's just not. And they basically understanding that. Now, moving on to this gender divide that these Black women are engaging in, women of color. Now, legal strategist Edward Blum is suing Smithsonian Museum director over Latino-focused internship programs. Let's go ahead and read it. Niquel Terry Ellis is still with us here on the article. Shout out to Niquel. I hope I'm saying the name right. Alliance for Equal Rights, which is led by Blum, claims the museum's Latino Museum Study Program undergraduate internship violated the U.S. Constitution. Now, this is where Edward Blum is going to fall, okay? Because his organization is not about going after Hispanics. His organization is going after, or Latinos rather, Hispanic and Latino. His organization is not going after them at all. His organization is targeting Black people. So this is kind of unusual for Edward Blum. This is where he's going to meet his match, because white people in general believe, as Joe Biden has pointed out, they believe that Hispanics and Latinos are the future of America. But it goes on to say here that the lawsuits state that at the end of 2 years, the intern program has operated, 2022 and 2023, the museum has never hired an intern any identified as non-Latino. Do you see that? It's considered of a race, ethnicity harm America, like plaintiffs' members who want to participate but have the wrong DNA, the lawsuits state. It should be declared unlawful and enjoined. The plaintiff members are not specifically named in the lawsuits. Now, see, here's what Edward Blum is doing. He's going around and he is telling other races, you cannot basically discriminate against any non-Black a non-Latino or non-person if y'all giving out money. But white folks, we can do that. We can do that. There's a lot of programs for white people that Edward Blum has not sued. A lot of them out here. He goes on to say that the plaintiff's members are not specifically named in the lawsuit. The 12-week intern program, according to the museum's website, is designed to increase hands-on training opportunities for Latino, and Latinx identifying undergraduate students interested in art museum careers. Plans for the National Museum of the American Latino Building are still being developed, but its gallery is on the display at the National Museum of American History. David Coronado, I hope I said his name right, a spokesman for the museum, declined to comment on the lawsuit. We are unable to provide a statement regarding this complaint, Carando said in an email. As a matter of policy, the Smithsonian does not comment on a litigation. End quote. CNN reached out to Blum for comment, and he shared a news release containing a statement on the lawsuit. In the statement, Blum called it unfair and illegal to reserve participation in programs like the museum's internship for a specific race and ethnicities. Now, what this Blum is saying is that this is reverse racism. And you try to tell white folks there's no such thing as reverse racism. You had a 400 years uh, 400 years step against all races. And if you basically is not doing something good or something for yourself as a white person, and you have the result in calling out reverse racism, you're just dumb. You understand? That's all it is. Nobody wants to fool with you as far as in business. Just get over it. It goes on to say that every student who is interested in the area of museum studies should have the opportunity to compete for the internship without their race being a determining factor, Blum said. It's our hope that Smithsonian institutions end this discriminatory programs and allow all students, regardless of their skin color, to compete for these important internships. The Smithsonian lawsuit is among several legal challenges Blum has filed since he successfully brought the case before the Supreme Court that gutted affirmative action last year. Earlier this month, the Supreme Court rejected a request from Blum's group, Student for Fair Admissions, to temporarily block the U.S. Military Academy at West Point from race-conscious admissions, CNN previously reported. Now, you see that? That's exactly why black people are upset. I didn't say just black men. I said, and just black women. I said black people. Why? Because what these white folks say is, oh, yeah, you can go and die for us, but we're not going to give you any kind of compensation to start businesses in a country you built. Okay? And this is the reason why it's becoming a reality that most of these politicians are just not going to do right. Nobody wants them in office anymore. And this Blum dude is able to do all this. Okay? Then it goes on to say that Blum is currently in a legal battle. Now, mind you, this was on it was still the lawsuit with the Fairness Fund was still happening at the time. So this article might be a little bit days earlier. Blum is currently in a legal battle with the Fearless Fund, a black woman-owned ventures capitalist firm, over its grant program that offers funding exclusively to black women entrepreneurs. Okay. In August, Blum also sued two international law firms over their diversity fellowship, but he later dropped one of the lawsuits after the firm decides to open it for other people. Now, here's the thing about what he's doing here. He is cherry picking certain types of demographics. We all know that. We all know that he's cherry picking here. He basically knows that white people engage in this type of action all the time. Hell, they've been doing it since slavery. He knows that these programs that he is suing are basically helping people who have a legitimate excuse. But with a racist white conservative Supreme Court in a 11th Circuit Court, this is how he's getting it done. And the conservative judges is no different from the liberal judges. They both, as I said in my book that I mentioned earlier, the conservative judge is no different from the liberal judge. They both do the same thing. They both try to deny black people the right to do anything when it comes to any finances or business, anything like that. As a black person, these white folks will try to shut you down, which is why it is foolish for black people to continue to not only advertise that you're doing it, but to stop putting the sponsors of your sponsors out there. Now, it's good for the website to brag that JP Morgan or Walmart or some organization is helping you. But as long as this Blum guy find out that you get money from white institutions and banks and businesses, he's going to say, oh, no, why are you giving those niggers all of that money and opportunity? Yeah, I'm going to go and sue you because that basically means that these 6 white people who have failed and from and been flunkies and working regular jobs, they also applied to your program. And they didn't get in. And so I'm going to sue because that's discrimination. Okay? What he's saying here with his old racist old ass is that we're going to continue to sue and use the white racist Supreme Court to get our way and target black people who have been, of course, denied opportunity, like redlining, Jim Crow laws, black codes. Black people are the only race and group in this country that has a legitimate reason for where there should be grants, money, and opportunity. But Edward Blum and his organization don't like that. Edward Blum is not suing the Small Business Administration that have given billions and billions of dollars to white people who have bankrupted those corporations for years. Where's Edward Blum on the grants for white people who have received a lot of money from the endowment? Where is Edward Blum up on all of the organizations and the businesses and white businesses who engage in setting up hedge funds companies that only invest in white major corporations? We don't see Edward Blum engaging in that type of lawsuits and litigation doing. In fact, where is Edward Blum when white people not only has set up these racist, discriminatory practices and given out loans and grants and redlining in these banking institutions, but Blum has not sued not one white person that decide to use race as a factor in any kind of business decisions that the Small Business Administration and all these other institutions have basically done against black people. Edward Blum basically is using his organization and using the funding, just like the Judicial Watch Group is doing, in basically trying to reverse, just like they did in the 1870s and 80s. We told you in earlier arenas, remember, black people have businesses, didn't they? Black people have businesses in the 1870s during Reconstruction, and they also had businesses in Wall Street and whatever, in other places. But Edward Blum, not Wall Street, but Greenwood community. But Edward Blum is using the conservative Supreme Court, and the liberals are not no better because they're not doing anything about Edward Blum. They're allowing him to use the court system as a way to target a specific group. And there is no liberal that is saying anything about how the U.S. Supreme Court, who's supposed to be racial blind in making their decisions, there is nothing they're doing about Edward Blum and these clouds from the Judicial Watch. These lawsuits is basically a money grab. And here's the real issue about it. If black people was not divided and not engaging in gender war, you really didn't really need to do this. I mean, you really didn't need to basically having your, not only did you not need to have the website saying that your funding who your funding came from, but they should have got a group of black women and said, listen, we're going to send out flyers and you're going to participate in this contest to win $25,000. Okay? You wanted to make this public for everybody to see and to hear about, so then you can turn around and now face lawsuits because you wanted the whole world to know that, oh, we got black girl magic. We're going to start giving black women, black female entrepreneurs the chance to open up the business. Nothing wrong with it, but it's still a gender divide concept, if you will. I'm not saying that Edward Blum is right. I'm saying what is necessary for us to understand is that black women is a part of the black race. And you're not going to be an island to yourself from your men. It just doesn't work. And then come back to them at the last minute saying you need help. That doesn't how society works. You don't see the Asian women doing this to their men. You don't see the white women doing this to their men. You don't see the Latino women doing this to their men. The only women who does this are black women. Okay, and that's the issue. Okay, the problem here is that because a lot of black women who's been rejected by men feel that they have to then go and date another woman, and then hate men because men are not attracted to them, is another issue here. But you don't basically then decide to hate all men just because a group of other men don't like you. You got to find a way to deal with the situation without bringing this gender divide to the black community. And this is what the Fearless Fund CEOs have done. And this is the reason why they have lost this case and will continue to lose it. In fact, I wish I had $100,000 that I can give black men grants. And I dare Edward Blum to come and sue me. Not only would I kick his ass, I would make sure he understand that I would point out every single white organization that has given money to white people only. He would be so upset. That son of a bitch would drop the lawsuit that same day. Just like he did with those international lawyers. One of them gave in, and what they did is that they said, okay, we'll hire certain people to just drop the lawsuit, or we're going to come after you on certain things. And so Edward Blum said, oh, okay, y'all going to come after me? Well, as long as y'all just basically hire this white person, then yeah, I'll drop the lawsuit. Even though they had dirt on Edward Blum, that's the reason why he negotiated with them. See, when you have dirt on these white folks, let them sue you, and then you do a counterclaim against them, you see? And so at this point, Edward Blum and this other guy, they are using the court system, the white conservative court system, to destroy the chances and the opportunity of black people. And this is becoming a problem because we have so many things going on. In fact, there's a problem with the lawsuits that he has basically already have won. Okay, so you can tell that the U.S. Supreme Court is racist, and you also know that that the circuit courts are racist. So it doesn't matter if they have black people on them. Okay, we already know what the game is. As Malcolm taught us, this is nothing but window dressing. Okay. All right, join us this week as we talk more about Edward Blum and what he's up to. We also going to be talking about on the Lawyers and Podcast show regarding the Palestinians and the Israeli conflict. But most importantly, we're going to be talking about the war that America and NATO is about to begin against Russia. Oh my God, we are basically headed for World War III. Oh man, when I come back on the Lawyers and Podcast show this week, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Okay? Leave your comments, like, share, and subscribe. You've been listening to the Lawyers and Podcast show.